I'm really honored to get to speak on this topic of our womb and sexual health and how they can be supported through the miraculous repair work of flower essences. So, we're going to just start with kind of coming together, taking some breaths, because not only because we've all been doing different things, but um, this topic is really deep. It's um, provocative in the sense that it can bring up, it can provoke different emotions, different memories, different thoughts about yourself. And it's something that I feel when we talk about womb space health and sexual health, we always want to approach with a lot of care and a lot of tenderness and also a lot of appreciation. So let's take a moment to just bring ourselves together in this field of sisterhood, and let's all close our eyes and take some nice deep breaths, really giving yourself the oxygenation of your body, which is the living life pulse and that which animates your soul into form. Feeling your womb space and your chest, this vessel cavity of your heart, rise and fall, ascent and descent in your own body with every breath. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Noticing what's present in your own body as you arrive. As you leave behind anything that doesn't need to be in this space. And placing your hands over your womb space. So whether you have the physical organ of the womb or not, this is an entire blueprint of the feminine. And as you feel the pressure of your own hands against your skin, against this organ that rests beneath, against this chalice, this holy grail, bringing all of your presence and awareness to the truth and knowing that you carry and you are the sacred feminine. And so dropping in to your own personal expression and feeling what's alive for you within your own womb space, your sensual and sexual pleasure, the space of Eros arriving in your incarnation. And you may find this space being really quiet or sad or joyful, neglected, angry, resourced, and it may be more than just one thing. Without judgment and with full welcoming, allow there to be communication between your womb space and your mind So we invite in all that's here in the hope and support that you receive exactly what it is that you need for your healing and your growth. May you feel safe. And may you remember that your womb space is meant to be exalted into her wholeness. Therefore, releasing you from any sexual or sensual bondage, shame, guilt, and wounds. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. Just giving yourself 3 more inhales and exhales. And when you're ready, very slowly letting in a little bit of light, opening your eyes, and more, and more, until we're here and present. And so as you arrive into this space, I'd love for you to share where you are in the world, what you're present to in your own womb space right now. And really, this is such a safe space. Everything that's shared is really something that many of us have experienced or are experiencing around our womb space and our sexual healing and expression. So where you are in the world and what it is that your womb space is communicating to you. So as we wait for your shares here, I do want to presence, as I said in the beginning, that this conversation can feel so freeing and liberating. And it can also really just churn up and stir up emotions and past experiences and wounds that you carry. And so just really follow your body in this conversation. Drink water, take deep breaths, and if or when you have questions, please place them in this chat box, because I really want to make this conversation specific to those of you who are here. And of course, those of you who listen to the recording, you can always put your questions and shares into this space. Colleen's tuning in from Buffalo. Yvonne, hi from Belgium. I feel irritation, grief, and anger in my womb space. Thank you, Yvonne. Shawnee here from Utah, present to a need in tuning into healing my sensuality and sexuality, feeling disconnected from this since birthing my son's solstice, nearing the 2-year mark with that. Thank you, Shawnee. Claire, I'm in the UK. I'm being called to reclaim my power, the wisdom of my womb, and my divine feminine essence. Yes, Claire, thank you. And so it is. Alicia, my womb is really asking me to anchor into my body and holding space for my essence to fully be here between the dimensions. And you're tuning in from Chicago. Thank you, Alicia. Okay, so I want to share a little bit, and it's obviously this is a short class and there's so much more to share and communicate. I want to share a bit about my frame as I'm speaking about all of this. And of course, I want to share flower essences. So last night, actually, as I was sitting down to prepare for this call and feeling into what would be most beneficial, I had posted in my Instagram stories, what is present for you in your sexual expression, and what is it that you most want to focus on, and where do you feel challenged? And so I've received some really beautiful messages. And the thing about talking about womb health and sexual health is that our experience of women runs on a really big spectrum. So for some of you, maybe you talk about womb and sexual health, and for you, it's referring to sexual betrayal you've had that's been sitting in your body and culminating in symptoms and relationship issues in your life. For some women, the response last night was, I have body issues and shame around my sexuality. And so there's this really big spectrum, which is why, an hour conversation about this is really a little morsel of all that's present for us as women. So let's just begin with this kind of universal experience that we have as women. So for those of us who were born into female bodies with female genitals, we have this shared experience of our organs, right? Our vagina, our vaginal canal, our cervix, our womb, our fallopian tubes. We have this entire system that is geared and focused towards reproduction. And of course, in the, let's say, 19th, probably 18th, 19th, and 20th century, this idea of this part of our bodies being a place of pleasure has kind of been left out of the conversation. It's reproductive. And so we have this shared experience. And of course, as women, we have a collective experience. Some of us here have been assaulted, raped, have had our sexual innocence violated. Some of us here have not, and yet we live in a world where that's so consuming, right? The rate of rape, the percentage of women who are raped is 1 in 3. And of course, in so many parts of the world, young girls, adolescents are sold into sex slavery. So we have kind of this, this stew pot that we sit in collectively as women, where there's violation against our bodies. So we have a collective experience, we have our personal experiences, and then we have past life experiences that we bring into this present life. And then we also have ancestral trauma that, moves through our lineage. And when it's not processed or resolved by the person that the experience happened to, it lands in our own bodies. So we have this conglomeration of all of this stuff that we're working towards and with to create liberation in our own selves. If we look at, goddesses and priestesses who lived 2,000 years ago or 6,000 years ago, their culture, we have 33 women here. That's a sacred number for Yeshua. I love that. Their culture was associated with the veneration, the respect of the feminine body for all that it creates, literally, in this world. And there was always this powerful understanding of the pleasure currents that run in our body. So if we just take this time to think about, this life and your personal experiences. Again, there's this spectrum of perhaps, violence and rape, to over here where you've not been physically violated or raped, but you've said yes to sexual experiences when you really wanted to say no. And that's part of our conditioning as women, to be good girls, to please, because we want people to love us and like us. And so we have this way that we've all related, where we've given over our bodies, whether it was with consent or without consent. So every woman here can probably raise her hands and say, I've been in a sexual experience that if I had to redo, I would have, or I wanted to be stronger and say no, right? So I'm sure every woman here can relay an experience where we squashed our own self-worth in favor of someone else's priorities and needs, right? And all of this culminates into our womb space. So our womb space is the place where these flames, these sparks of our incarnation from the root chakra land, and the flames of our own expression of Eros take over. And part of living in this body, of being embodied, is experience everything: pain and absolute pleasure. So we've kind of journeyed a lot with the pain. And how do we relink with the pleasure? And for me, so much of that has to do with working with the energetics and the imprints that have landed in your womb space, that have just kind of been sitting there. Now, some of you have been doing great exploration of all of this, and it's amazing how much more there still is. So, of course, we always look back at your childhood and what you learned about being a woman, what you learned about using your voice, because the womb space is actually the place of our self-worth and deservability. It's not just this housing of sex. It's how we receive, right? Are we worthy to receive all different kinds of pleasure and accolades and celebrations and joys, or are we squashed and smushed? So we always look back and we turn to what happened in your childhood. How were women honored or dishonored? How were you honored? How were you seen? How were you fostered to be fully you? And then we look at, that time when you start bleeding, and in your moon time, and that is the moment where the maiden becomes the lover. That is the moment where that understanding that you are a sexual being comes online, and you're inundated with these light codes of the sacred feminine. And so if you entered into that time with shame, with guilt, with disgust, then that interpretation gets imprinted about your body. Blood is life. Blood is part of creation. Blood is messy. Blood is primal. Blood is sexy. Blood is sensual. But if you cross that threshold with confusion, disgust, shame, hiding, then that translates into how you perceive yourself as a sexual being. And then, of course, in that time of lovership, we have all different experiences, right? So violations, betrayals, abortions, miscarriages, all of these things that happen in our lives. And unless we have the tools to process them in the moment, they sit in the womb space, and they don't have a place to process. They don't have a place to be heard. They don't have a place to be released. And this imprint becomes this foundation through which you live your life, right? So if you've had an abortion that you didn't quite process through, maybe years later you find these layers of grief, right? That happens for so many women. Or sexual assault that you can't deal with in the moment because it's too painful and overwhelming for the body, that the body goes into layers of shock and trauma. So every woman here has a different story. I want to share some flower essences, and I want this to be interactive because I would really love for you to leave this space and this experience feeling like you have something that you can take for what's present for you. And of course, there's layers, like the petals of a rose, that we get to one layer of our healing and we feel an expanded spaciousness. And then later there may be another layer. And so there's all these threads. And with each layer that's repaired, there's liberation of your Eros, of this powerful force that experiences pleasure. So many of us on a spiritual path tend to live in these like upper realms, not just because it's fantastic to commune with spirit, but because it's really painful to be inside of the body. We've been gifted this body, and the only way to truly use it and to harness its power is to come in and live inside of the body. And the only way that we can do that is to have tools to work with the pain and the wounds and the traumas. Because if not, we're like, I'm getting out of here, right? So, okay, I've just talked for a while. I haven't looked at my notes. Let me see if I have any more that I want to say. I mean, I really just want to start actually getting into the flower essences because I know that's a good place for us to be. I can't even find my notes, so forget it. So for those of you who are new to flower essences, let's just take 2 minutes to talk about them. I know I see a lot of you here who have known me for some time or have taken workshops or classes with me. And so you know that I love talking about flower essences. Flower essences are vibrational. They're the energy, they're the spirit of a plant, a flower, a tree, really anything that survives and exists in nature. And there's a way when you collect the essence that you're collecting the spirit, the vibration, the frequency of that plant. We are frequency. You know, we have this physical matter, but we really are vibration. So these traumas in our body are low and dense vibrations, and these moments of pain and of pleasure and joy and really being in the wholeness of who you are these high levels of vibration. And because so many of us have had trauma, we're kind of functioning in this low vibration, which makes us more susceptible to all different physical symptoms and illness and disease, and also gets us into situations that reaffirm the trauma. So we go, okay, yeah, I'm not lovable. I do hate my body. My body's ugly. I don't trust men. Look what they do. So these low vibrations move us into these quote unquote familiar experiences. And in these familiar experiences, we replay and we affirm that which has already been wounded. And so the point of taking flower essences is that when you ingest the spirit or the frequency of a plant and it meets you in your frequency, it starts to move and churn those lower dense frequencies and brings them up and out through the tissues, up and out through the psyche, so that you can really expand into that higher vibration of who you are and who you always have been before these conditionings, before these lineage pieces embedded in you, back to your blueprint. And they're miracles. So they're safe, they're effective. You don't have to worry about any other medication you're taking. They're good for children, they're good for grown-ups, they're good for animals. They're totally amazing, amazing medicine. So, a couple months ago, we launched our flower essence line called Gaia's Wisdom. And Gaia's Wisdom actually has a womb collection. There are other essences and other parts of our collections that do work for the womb, but we created one specific for the womb because I've been a practitioner for 20 years, and because of my own healing journey and because of my the things that bring me passion and joy, is my clients over the last 20 years have taught me so much about womb healing and sexual healing. And really, I say them because they go hand in hand. It's not like you're doing one or the other. They are intimately connected. That how we turn and face what's present in the womb space is then how we free ourselves. So I know I've said that a couple times, but I want to make that really clear in the linking of those two. We don't just focus on sexual healing. We focus on why, that piece. And it's that piece because all of these things have been landing in the womb space. And that's the place we need to enter, that sacred grove of the feminine. We enter and we start exploring and looking around and seeing what's happened and seeing what needs to be tended to. And we go layer by layer with so much love, compassion, patience, because what's on the other side is what you've been seeking in yourself for so long. And to rush through it creates a really unsustainable result where you might feel good for a little bit and then you revert back. What I'm most interested in and why I love flower essences is not just for health, because health is something that it kind of comes and goes, right? You feel good for a while and you plateau, and then if you're not taking care of yourself, you can not feel well. But what I am most interested in is healing. And healing takes time and presence and love and compassion and patience and flower essences. So within this womb collection, we have 16 essences. And so I wanted to talk about a few of them today. And like I said, I would really love if you, in this chat box, you start sharing what it is that you want support with, super specific. And I know this is vulnerable. We're in a space that maybe you don't know other women, but I promise you that this space has been created to be safe. There's a force field to keep us all in a loving resonance. So I'm going to start, and then please, in the chat box, if you can write down specific questions that you have for yourself and your own healing and repair, please ask. When I teach about flower essences, I really come from this place. It's something that I learned as a doula. I was a doula for 8 years, that everything is repairable. So I want you to hear that again, is everything is repairable. And sometimes we think we're broken. Sometimes we think like this thing that we're struggling with will never leave. We're going to be stuck with it forever. And I promise that if you work with flower essences, I mean, that's a big thing to promise you. I promise that if you consistently work with flower essences and show up for yourself, you will get to that place where you turn around and go, oh, I'm not carrying that belief about myself. I'm not carrying that wounding about myself. I'm not carrying that shame that I've been carrying for 3 decades. It's like this subtle thing where you look around and go, oh, I'm different. So let's get to it. Okay, so Shawnee just got red elderberry. And Christina is saying, I had 2 miscarriages and 1 abortion, and I want to heal and clear the space in my womb. Okay, so let's just talk about red elderberry. Because Barbara, you're saying I carry shame and miscarriages in my womb. So red elderberry is a great place to begin when there's been miscarriage, where there's been abortion, where there's been layers of, let's say, yeah, just really immense grief and trauma, right? And so even when we enter into an abortion consciously, there's still going to be emotions that happen, right? Just like you may have the most beautiful home birth where, you know, everything went according to quote unquote plan, there's still going to be emotions around it. We're emotive beings, and it's important for us to have emotions. So I want to speak about red elderberry, and then I'm going to speak about omphalos, because they kind of both work in this field of clearing and healing and repair, but in different ways. So red elderberry is obviously a berry, these rich red berries, and it really, you know, assists in clearing the womb space, especially after there's been loss, right? So miscarriage or repeated miscarriages, stillbirth, abortion, the loss of a child, so even a grown-up child, right? It's like that child who came from your womb, even if they're 20 years old, the motherly grief drops into the womb space. And this can also have to do with, you know, the loss of your innocence from sexual assault or betrayal. It's in our definition of red elderberry, it's that this essence literally breathes life back into dead spaces, into places that feel dead for you. They're obviously not dead, into places that have been holding so much trauma. Now, red elderberry in and of itself is a poisonous berry, but when you use poisonous plants, berries, trees, flowers, leaves as essences, they actually work in such a deeply shamanic way. They kind of cross through the realms and the layers of the mind and create profound healing. So if you were to use red elderberry, I would say, you know, take 1 or 2 drops and sit with your intention to clear a couple times a day. Or maybe you start with once a day, because it can be very emotive, actually giving the womb space the space to clear itself out. There may be other emotions that arrive and arise, and that's why there's even more flower essences once you're in the process of clearing. And so some of you may feel the emotional process. Some of you may actually have a physical experience as the womb space releases. You may have a little blood that releases. You may have just a feeling of lightness, right? Some of the heaviness that you've been carrying. And so if you're thinking about getting pregnant and you've been holding a lot of trauma in the womb space, then red elderberry would be really powerful. Okay, I'm just reading some of these shares here. Okay, Rianne, I'm going to come back to your share. because there's something else I would recommend for that. Shawnee, red elderberry's been coming to you in dreams. Does she work well for sexual assault, violation, rape as well? Yeah, so obviously, you know, I know Shawnee and she's been working with me for a few years. And so, you know, the way that I suggest flower essences is also based on where you are in your journey. So if you're just starting, you want to go slow. Shawnee is, you know, deep in her process, so I would probably give her a different recommendation than I might give somebody who's just beginning. Red elderberry, when you work with her just solo, is going to provide such incredible clearing and healing that within that she is going to show you what's next. So I would definitely start with that, Shawnee, and you're going to feel the releasing. The other essence that many of you may want to work with in addition to red elderberry or separately is red hibiscus. And you'll see in the womb collection that many of our essences in the collection are red, you know, the red of the feminine, the red of our blood, the red of life, the red of our anger and our sacred rage and our fury, the red of the red ray of Eros, of all that clarifies as we embody. So there's a lot of red in the womb collection. And so the other essence that may be really beneficial for a lot of you is the red hibiscus. So the red hibiscus traditionally is used for healing sexual trauma and shame. So if you've had trauma, betrayals, pains that have to do with your own authority being powered over in your own body, then red hibiscus will be really helpful. And if you know red hibiscus flower, you know, she's just this like, you know, hibiscus in general. They're just beautiful, big flowers and their leaves are big. And it's about that blossoming forth of your own power, of your own emanation of your body temple. So red hibiscus is very specific for sexual shame. So if you're feeling like, oh, I have all this stuff that I want to clear from my womb that has to do with sexual assault, then the red hibiscus and the red elderberry will be really beautiful together. And that's the thing with flower essences, is kind of like taking a piece of your story and a piece of your story and taking a flower essence here and a flower essence here to create this alchemical gold, really, for your evolution into wholeness. Jessica, I'm working with Brittany. She's one of our graduates of the Flower Essence Practitioner Training Program to heal trauma in my womb space. Through our Flower Essence sessions, I realized how sexual trauma forced me out of my body, and I'm still living that pattern. I've felt disconnected from my dreams, frustrated in cycles through my life. Thank you for witnessing me. I am so grateful for this medicine. Thank you, Sister of the Rose. I love you so much. Yeah, so it's really powerful because I think for so many of us who are conscious, we think, I'm not living outside of my body. I'm here. And then you start working with flower essences and you realize how out of your body you have been living. And that's part of why we can't move forward in our sexual growth and healing, because we're not here. We're not fully here. It's too painful to be here. So Barb, you had asked about, Rianne and Kay about this piece of, how do I get in my body? How do I feel safe? And that's the question, right? And the best flower essences for that are red cedar. Red cedar tree is for safety in the body. And the other amazing one, and I know Kay, you're in the UK, so I'm saying this more specifically for you, is Star of Bethlehem. So Star of Bethlehem is from the Bach remedies, and it's for trauma. Now, Gaia's Wisdom has a very similar essence to that, which is arnica or soft arnica, and it's for this trauma, right? So if you have trauma, which we've all experienced, and it's unresolved, your body is in some layer of overwhelm, fight or flight, or freeze. And that's why we go up. So arnica or Star of Bethlehem help to move trauma out of the body. This can be recent trauma. This can be trauma from 40 years ago. It helps to move trauma out because until the trauma leaves or lessens, you're not going to want to come back into this body. Or you may dip in and dip back out, and you don't really get the results that you want to have. You don't transform. So essences like red cedar, Star of Bethlehem, or soft arnica are really important for safety and moving trauma from the body. And then after that, you can start to explore these other layers for repair. Okay, let's see here. Yvonne, I feel rejected and unworthy as a woman because my ex-husband had problems with erection and he gave me the feeling that it's my fault. I know it's not true and I'm very angry about that. And I still feel unworthy and guilty because of an abortion. My ex-husband said this was the moment he stopped loving me. But he never said what he really wanted and he left me all alone with this decision. So much love to you, Yvonne. I think so many of us have been in situations where there's so much manipulation that we've been made to feel wrong. And I just really want to tell all of you who are here that you're not wrong. You've never been wrong. You're a highly emotive being who thinks things through and has a process, and that's beautiful. So these stories that we take on that affect our self-worth live in the womb space. Right? The second chakra, if we go to Indian ideology about the chakras, is all about worthiness, and it's all about receptivity. So when you're working on your sexual healing, you absolutely need essences for your own self-worth, right? Because who am I to be worthy of sexual expression? Who am I to have great love in my life? Who am I to love my body? Who am I to feel, potent and juicy? These are questions we ask ourselves all the time. And then we know that great Marianne Williamson quote where she says, "Who are you not to?" It's part of your birthright to feel the power, the truth, the wisdom of your own body. So essences for self-worth would be buttercup and leatherwort for making boundaries, and white hyssop for moving some of the guilt out, right? That the only reason we feel guilt is because either we or somebody else is second guessing our choices. And we have to base our choices on the moment and trusting ourselves. So there's essences for everything. I am consciously working with my little girl, says Alicia. I'm becoming fully into a woman. One of many rebirths happening. Any flower essences to allow me to fully anchor into a new timeline, integration of my power, being seen, feeling alive, full presence. Okay, so I would start really with arnica, with this place of trauma. Because trauma really is, it's like kind of a dead point, right? If we have trauma, we can't access ourself. Everything and our whole life and our story comes from that moment or moments. So starting with a way to really clear things out. Alicia, I would love like a little bit more specific because, you know, integration with power and being seen, you know, I could give you some essences, but I actually feel like we could go deeper a little bit here, and give you even more specific essences because, you know, being seen again would be buttercup, really, really being seen for yourself in your glory. But I'm wondering, like, why is there the aspect? What created the piece or the belief that you can't be seen? Yeah, I'd love a little bit more. Be Bliss, thank you for this. And everyone here, I'm wondering how to help with mother wounding, especially abandonment. So Be Bliss on the Woman Rising Mystery School website or the Gaia's Wisdom website. I have a PDF that I created, excuse me, about the mother wound and flower essences specifically for the mother wound. So it's free. It's just downloadable. I would suggest getting that and looking through the different essences because, you know, abandonment's huge. And actually there's an amazing flower essence called Black Currant, which is extraordinary for abandonment. But there's all these layers that get created with abandonment. And that PDF will be really, really helpful for you. Hey, Krista, I'm just going to take a sip of water. You're going to try to be specific. Okay, great. I need help with numbness. I feel my ability to open pleasure is blocked. There's grief that's hard to confront, feelings of unworthiness, not deserving to be loved, difficulty to let others close. Thank you, Krista. So what I'm hearing here is a lot about intimacy, right? Really feeling safe to open. And we've had a lot of experiences in our lives that weren't safe or that were seemingly safe, and then you started to open and reveal yourselves, and then it wasn't safe anymore. So I want to say that when we're dealing with a deepening of our own intimate selves, again, we have to go really slowly. If you go too fast, you inundate your system with more trauma. So Krista, for you, there's a couple essences that are coming forth. And then I want to circle back to the omphalos because I forgot that I wanted to take that. You know, with flower essences, there's so many directions we can go. So, you know, we have actually a whole rose collection in our Avalon collection. And I'm feeling that the red rose or the pink rose, the pale pink rose would be a great beginning place for you of just letting the heart relax a little bit, right? Just relaxing and softening and opening that heart space for you to trust self. Because really, in reality, it's not so much when we get to a place of our own consciousness and growth, it's not about trusting others. It's about trusting self and the feelings and emanations of truth that come through us. So as you're sharing here, my first thought is actually the pale pink rose of just kind of this softening and opening of the heart. I know we're talking about the womb space, but of course they're absolutely connected, as you know, as part of the three main energy centers of our body, the womb space, the heart, and the mind. And so starting with the pale pink rose and then even maybe moving into the gold rose as well. And then again, these essences, like the feeling of unworthiness is buttercup. The numbness. So the numbness, again, I would circle back into the red elderberry. But one essence I want to talk about that I think would be really fun for you, Krista, is, and for anyone else in this process, because whenever we're talking about womb healing and sexual healing, we always have to start with self, right? So that's one of the most important things, because in our sexual expression as little girls, as young women, we learn that pleasure exists for the service of others. And we learn that pleasure really exists outside of ourselves. And so this is a coming back to yourself. So you can begin with Arnica. You can begin with Star Bethlehem. Clear the trauma. You can take that pink rose and just open and relax and turn towards your own loving and your own trusting of self and your own intimacy. And then I think it'd be really fun for you to play with the pink Avapui ginger. I mean, the red Avapui. So the red Avapui ginger, it's in the Womb collection. You know, it's every story, every collection of these essences has a story. And the red Avapui is pretty amazing. What it does is it creates that juicy Eros energy. It's really, for me, it's an essence of like the turned on woman, right? So this numbness that you're feeling, what I'd be curious about is, can we thaw it with your own Eros, your own fires? So this is not about anyone else. This is about you, Krista. So the red Avapui ginger is like super activating. So when I was collecting this essence, I was on Maui, and I was in a pretty, open trail, and I felt called to this plant, and I sat with her, and all of a sudden I was so turned on that I was about to have an orgasm. And that's pretty amazing, to just be in nature and to be communing with this sort of a plant. And I got so turned on that I was just about to have an orgasm, and these people walked on the trail. Then I just kind of stopped the process. And so the red Avapui is just this turned on essence. And part of what I feel is working with your own turn on. What can that melt? What can that open? What can that heal in your own grief and unworthiness? So those are the things that I would highly recommend for you, Krista, to play with in your own self, because it's also a reframe. Sometimes when we approach all of this and all just feels heavy, right? We're just like, I want to have my pleasure unleashed and I don't want to feel all of this, and it's so heavy. And the red Avapui ginger is like, hello, goddess. Let's have some fun with your own body. Michal, oh, thank you so much. So Michal is saying she carries a very physical fear, a feeling of not having the control of her body safe. Like her flesh is so vulnerable when it comes to physical intimacy, but even just standing and walking straight and open is a challenge. So Krista and Michal know each other. They were in Priestesses of the Rose last year, and so they're sisters of the Rose. And it's almost similar. What I would say to you, Michal, that I said to Krista is try that pink rose. Hold on a second. Yeah, start with the pink rose. You may also want to look at the violet rose. And hold on. Before you take the red Avapui ginger, there's another essence I want to recommend to you. Okay, there's two others that I want to tell you, and so you can decide what resonates for you. I don't think the red Avapui ginger would be like the one I would go to. Like I suggested with Krista, I would say either the fleabane. So fleabane is an amazing essence for us all. It helps to heal feminine suppression. Sometimes that's kind of general. Sometimes we know why we've been suppressed. Sometimes we don't understand like why we feel suppressed, why we can't access our power, why we feel unsafe, fleabane is this teeny A beautiful flower. I collected in Avalon in the apple orchards where the priestesses used to gather and lay in the grass, and to just move out some of the suppression that's in your body that's either conscious or not conscious. And then the other one that I was just thinking, hold on, our Mary Magdalene essence. And so Mary Magdalene was collected on the lands that you live on, Michal, in Israel. And, Mary Magdalene has so much to teach us about our safety, about our flesh, about our human experience as bleeding women and as sexual women. So she might be more of an essence I would take, once a day to just open into the possibilities that exist. And then at other times I would take the pink rose and the fleabane, and just, if you take essences for a month consistently, what happens is that you begin a process. So some of you come here and you're like, I'm super clear. This is what's happening and this is why. Some of you go, I don't get, why am I numb, and why do I not want physical touch? And what, if you take these essences for a full moon cycle consistently, what happens is things start getting released and new information begins to be revealed. And with that new information, you start taking different essences. So it's this whole beautiful process. So Michal, you may come back and go, oh my gosh, I remember an experience when I was 7, somebody pulled me and my body, and I've kept that memory in my body. Or something may come up that makes so much sense and gives you a tangible understanding of why this has manifested. So that's where I would start. Okay, so I'm going to take a couple more here. I hold shame and pain from sexual assault, says Claire, while I was in the army. I carried the shame up until recently, alongside being objectified and not respecting or loving my body. I am being called now to the rose. Is there something you can help me with here? So I guess my question for you, Claire, is it sounds like there's a lot that you've released. And so what is it that you're still holding on to and want support with? That would be, if you could just answer that there, that would be great. Okay. Oh, yay. Lots of love for Buttercup. Yeah, I love Buttercup. Oh, great, Krista. I'm so glad. Clara, which PDF? Oh, so I was mentioning on the Woman Rising Mystery School site. So if you go to womanrisingmysteryschool.com, you'll see a page, free resources. And on that page is a PDF about flower essences for healing mother wound. So it's free, it's downloadable. Hello, Sophia. Oh gosh, okay, lots of questions here. Okay, so let me speak about omphalos, and I'll wait to hear back from I'll wait to hear back from Claire. Okay, so omphalos is, I'll end with this, and Claire, if you're still here, if you want to share a little bit more, I'd love to support you. So omphalos is an essence collected from a stone, actually, in Avalon. And it was the stone that's said to have collected the moon blood of priestesses for thousands of years. And so what that means is that this stone holds the DNA of powerful, of connected, of women of service for the divine. It's kind of, infused with the DNA of powerful priestess. And so when you use it as an essence, it both can help in clearing your own womb space in slightly different way than red elderberry. But what it does also is that it can heal you of and release you from any sexual partners that are being still held in your womb space energetically. It can clear shame that you've been carrying. What it also does is it connects you to the cosmic womb. The cosmic womb is the place where the entire planet birthed. And in your own womb space is the dreams of your own soul. That's where you go, oh, I want to do this, and this is who I really am. All of that sits in your womb space. So if you're confused about your life, if you're stuck, if you don't know how to be who you are, if you don't know who you are, womb space clearing. This opens the portals, connects you back to the great cosmic womb, where you start to open and understand dreams of your own soul, of your own mission, of your own destiny. So it's sort of a both and essence, where it really helps with physical healing and also this soulful spiritual aspect of who you are as a feminine embodiment of the goddess and goddesses. And then I saw a couple questions about uterine fibroids, and so I'll just speak about this quickly because it's really different depending on every woman and every woman's story. So uterine fibroids, they're created from trauma. So this is my take on feminine reproductive health issues, including fibroids. That these traumas that we've been talking about, these suppressions, these wounds that have been left unprocessed and untreated and get murky and heavy, create physical symptoms. And right now there's an epidemic of women's reproductive health issues because of our collective and personal traumas. So uterine fibroids are just another emanation of things that have been sitting in our bodies. With flower essences, the more specific you get to your personal story, Victoria, why those are there, what happened, then we use the essences that are specific to your story, and we start to see change in uterine fibroids. And this is true for everything. This is true if you're having infertility issues, if you're having painful menstrual cramps, fibroids, cysts, endometriosis. All of these are part of emotional trauma that's been sitting in the body. So we just get really specific. Okay, so I think maybe Claire's not here anymore. So I can't go deeper with her question. One of the things that I want to say is that obviously we have the Gaia's Wisdom website. So you can go on, and if there are specific essences that call to you, get them. Start working with them. Start feeling how these spirits of nature help your own nature come alive. If you want to work with a practitioner, we have women who have gone through our practitioner training program. We have a website. We have a directory on our website. You can find a practitioner. It's amazing to work one-on-one with somebody who can give you undivided attention and understands how trauma affects and impacts not only the past, but the present. And lastly, divine timing as it is, we did not plan this when I created the weeks of our conversations in this group, but registration just opened for the Woman Rising Flower Essence Practitioner Training Program today. So we will have applications over for 2 weeks. This is a program that's really, I was writing this last night. It's a love letter from my soul. Flower essences are part of my mission here to help others understand the potency of how they work and show up in our lives. And we're at a point right now in humanity where many of us are looking for careers or deepening in our careers that are based on those dreams of the soul, the dreams that are in our womb space, working with the plants and plant spirits, helping others move out of suffering, and having a system as a practitioner. That's what this program's about. So you can read all about it. I'll be talking about it a lot over the next 2 weeks. We actually only take 30 women and we're about half filled right now. So it's offered once a year. And this year we've lowered the tuition by $500 and you get one-on-one sessions and you get 76 essences for your apothecary. And yes, Deva, it is online, so you can be anywhere in the world. We usually have an optional in-person retreat, and this year we're unsure when that will be. It will happen because it's a very important part of the experience, and by the time this quarantine ends, we will need and have to be in person together. But it's all online, and we have women from South Africa to Australia to Canada to the UK to Mexico to Spain to the UK, all over the world. And it's an extraordinary program that focuses on trauma, building a business, your own emotional journey, right? Because you can't ask others as a practitioner to do what you haven't done. So, as more and more questions come alive in our conversation from today, you can please, yay, Barbara, I know you're excited, you're enrolled and joining us, and got some graduates of past year. Shawnee's here, she's saying it's so extraordinary. Thank you, Shawnee. Yeah, we'll be sharing and we'll put the website and all of that. But if more questions come alive for you as you sit and think into all that's shared, please post them either as a new thread here or post them in this thread. I'm happy to answer. Please just tag my name so that I know that you want, my support with a question. And I'm happy to keep sharing about flower essences. I just feel, yeah, they're miracles. And I say that like with the deepest part of my being, that they will radically change the things that you've been holding on to or that have felt that they're holding on to you and that have been really inhibiting your life. We don't need to tolerate. We don't. And we don't need to normalize the things that we see in the world that the world tells us are normal. Anxiety, depression, not liking our bodies, not having painful cycles and periods. These are things our culture normalizes. And that's just how we tolerate. No one here needs to have those experiences. And what that means is that you are invited to step up for your own self. Pleasure, sensual and sexual expression, your own Eros, your ability to conceive, have a child, have a great postpartum sexual expression. These are all part of your womaning. And it's all available. So thank you so much for being here and awaiting my technical issues and staying longer. And we will have more free experiences throughout May because it's been so beautiful to be together every week here in the Facebook group. And if there's specific things that you really want me to teach, I have some ideas as well, please let us know. And I bow to each and every one of you with so much love. Let's just take a moment to close our eyes. If you want, you can place your hand or hands over your womb space. Just check in with this part of your body now. Giving thanks to your life and all of your experiences that have gotten you to this moment where there is opening. There's potentiality of healing. Bowing to the plants and the essences of nature for bestowing their gifts of wisdom and magical repair. And so it is.